Welcome, everyone, to the December and Christmas 2024 Town Hall. Good to have you all here. Apologies for any coughing. Yeah, just trying to get over a cold. Yeah, so we don't have a specific presentation for today, but there are a couple of bits we'd like to show you, some ideas that we're working on, and that ties in quite nicely into planning out 2025, making sure that we're going in the right direction, and getting your thoughts on sort of client experience, really, as well as building an agency and developer experience, kind of how it affects everybody, and just seeing where we can improve. We've definitely identified some areas that are a little disconnected, let's say. I think that's probably the nicest way to put it. I think there's some things that could easily be a lot more streamlined to speed things up for you, but also a lot easier to help get on board. If you've got anybody new joining the team, or if you've got clients editing things, some things are in a few different places. So it'd be good to get your thoughts on that. Obviously, also just generally feedback on how things are going, how things have changed throughout the year, maybe, and what you'd like to see in 2025. So, yeah, should I? It would be, in a way, it'd be interesting to hear what people want to talk about before I mention anything. Or if we need some inspiration, I'll jump in and share what I've been working on. So, over to you guys first.
You go
Put
first,
you on the
Lee.
spot.
You go first.
Thought you might say that.
Yeah.
Cool. Um, all right, I will just share my screen. So yeah, a bit of a background. So one thing we've definitely wanted to do is think about the different experience for different people and try and make things more connected. So at the moment, if anybody uses Site Builder, which you don't have to do, but it's there to make things easier and quicker, it's quite a disjointed experience. If you go to Site Builder, you've got to go there and install layouts, and then you've got to jump back to Pages and insert either dynamic layouts from Toolbox, or you can insert static layouts from Studio. It's all very much, you've got to go to the right place at the right time for the right thing. And I don't think that's particularly easy to follow. So we would like to try and make sort of one main editing experience, building experience, and then really use user roles to um, give you guys total control and customization over who sees what, who does what, and just have one place to do it in an ideal world. There's obviously some technical challenges there. There's some sort of fundamental and principle challenges, sort of best practice challenges. What we don't want to do is go too far down the road of no code where it writes the code for you and you end up with messy code behind the scenes. It's not how we've ever wanted to go, and we're going to make sure we don't do that. So we have a bit of a solution to that I think takes us a bit more towards our long-term saying and vision of edit content, not code. So we want to help make it possible for you guys and for customers to focus on editing content and what they should be editing, not the code. So we've had a look at Studio in particular and tried to see where that could be improved to make that building and editing experience better and pull things together. So if I just share my screen, this is very early days. This is just to start our internal planning and ideas, but also to be able to involve you guys at the earliest possible stage, get some feedback, and make sure we go in the right direction. So can you see my screen okay?
Yeah.
So we're actually working on quite a few things. One is just generally an overhaul of the UI UX, mainly the UX, to make sure it's just a little bit cleaner and easier, especially if anybody maybe new is joining the platform or you've got new team members, as I mentioned. So I'll just flick to the sort of overall flow, just making it all a little bit simpler. Again, this is very, very rough for the moment, but I'm just trying to piece together the bits that could be improved. So when you create an account, just making that initial process a little bit easier. So the first thing you see is the portal and some buttons to make it quite clear what you can do, really. So whether you want to create a site from a template or start from scratch, we've got that, but it's still a little bit hidden away. And there's a few too many different kind of sections at the moment of, do I go into clients? Do I go into sites? Where do I go? So we want to just try and streamline that. And then if you were to click, say, use a template, we would probably still go to the marketplace and handle it the way we do, but there might be nicer ways to do that as well. You would create a site. And then the idea of actually putting everything into the dashboard, especially if you only have one or two sites or you're just getting started, it'd be much nicer to not have to go away into sites and find it. And then obviously that would let you know that it's still being created. Once you get the email confirmation that it's been created and you go back to the dashboard, it would show as a project. Ideally, we put some kind of screenshot in there or something to differentiate projects from one another. You guys could do that specifically for your customer as well, so that when they log in, again, you don't have to train them on where to go. The first thing they see is their project. Also, with user roles, we want to make sure that you can turn off anything and everything, so you'd be able to hide the bits that you don't want them to see and fully sort of customize the experience. So if you then clicked into a project, this one is very rough. At the moment, we've obviously got the boxes on dashboard. I think what would be really nice is for you guys to have total control over the dashboard, be able to put maybe analytics in there, like the BC days, or things that are very relevant to them, or something completely custom. But for now, I've just put in some big chunky boxes just to help get to the right place. And that leads on, I guess, to now thinking less about having to keep diving around the left-hand menu. So having to go, oh, am I editing a page? So now I've got to go to CMS pages, or am I trying to add a content section or whatever it might be? The idea would be that there'd be a central place that you can go to, or you can send your customers to, called Studio at the moment. Again, we're open to ideas and feedback on everything and happy to look at how overall we can just make the experience better. So happy to look at names and things. But yes, so the idea would be that Studio would be one place, and within there you'd be able to manage things like which page you're on. And be able to navigate through those quickly without having to keep jumping around. So at the moment, I'm on a blank page called homepage. There would be a little cog or something to control the settings of that page. So again, you don't have to keep diving around to do maybe the SEO content or um, some of the other features we've got on pages at the moment. Potentially, you could do all of that here, again, based on feedback. Then, as we've got at the moment with Studio now, this is the bit that's really needs more thought and planning, and we'd love some feedback on. But being able to structure the page and see the structure, firstly, whether a header and footer from a template should appear, whether they should be manageable on a per page basis, that's one thing to consider. But then also whether you see granular structural detail or not, because we could potentially save some real estate, get rid of this, and have more space somewhere else, perhaps. So initially, what you'd be likely doing is wanting to build out a page using sections. If you're using Studio, it's going to be far simpler to work with pre-built sections. They could be from Site Builder, they could be from Marketplace, they could be totally custom and controlled by you guys. This comes back to probably the last town hall, I think it was, yeah, where we had a good long discussion about, especially in the second session, about themes, templates, sections, all of that kind of stuff. And I think what's really important is that if we are going to focus on separating content from code, we need to give you guys a way to control what the customer can do and what maybe your team can do. And the way we're hitting on at the moment, and I think will be incredibly useful and the right way to go, is structured data that doesn't have to be in a database. So at the moment, if you want to do anything structured, you've pretty much got to build a web app. And it was actually Carlos, he's not here today, but he sent a message saying he would like a web app for projects, and then he'd like every item's detail view to be completely different. That's a possibility. I mean, in a lot of platforms, you have one layout and that's it, but it's still maybe a clunky way of achieving something that you want to achieve. So the new concept that I'm pretty sure we will be doing in some way, shape, or form with your input is using JSON to structure layouts effectively. So let's show you an example, then we can talk through it. Feel free to ask questions. So if I click Add Section, it's pretty much exactly as we have it now in current studio, but on the right, you've just got that list of layouts. It's a bit limited over there, and it also relies on you dragging it in and getting it in the right place. And that's one of the issues is we start to bring in no code issues with that. When you have an editor where you're actually editing the design, sort of Webflow-esque, you start to bring in, well, it's got to decide where to put the code. Is it getting it right? Is the user understanding how to do it? That kind of stuff. So this approach, there will be all three types. There'll be sort of completely custom free range sections, sort of Webflow-esque, structured content, which I'm about to show you, and then dynamic content as we already have it now. So just if I show you a structured content item, but I'll show you a normal one first. So if we insert this item, sorry, no, this is a structured one, but a very basic, simple static layout. So this is just a hero or a content section. And currently you can insert that in Studio, but then you can come into here and you can edit everything. But you can also break it. You can add styling. The customer can completely change it from what you want them to do and effectively what they want to do. They end up sort of saying, well, it now doesn't look very good. So the idea with this is it's structured using JSON. So the layout itself would have some placeholders effectively in it where you can say this bit here is the title, this bit here is the description, this is the image, and this is the button. So then on the right hand side, you separate content from code by letting people edit the content exactly like how a web app works, but see it live as a live update in the visual editor. So does that make sense? And any immediate feedback on that?
Yes, it's kind of all okay until you then decide, right, in the description, I'd like to put some links in, or
Yeah.
and then straight away I'm looking, going, ooh, how would I do that?
Exactly, exactly. So the reason why you have it completely flexible is to allow people to do things like that. So there are things that we can do. We can have some standard JSON components that would you get a little plus button to say add another button or
Mm.
add X. We could have some standard components that you guys could either so this is where we want to give you total control about how flexible it is for the customer. So you might not want them doing that, but you might want to be able to add in another button. Your option is to go into the layout, which again, we can end up making visually editable. So you don't have to be a developer, let's say, but in the layout, you could add in another button just using the JSON component, or you could have it in the UI so that they can add that in more dynamically, I guess. So there just can be a button saying uh, here saying add secondary button or add button, and that would then know that it can only really put it there. Again, the layout's got to be set up to handle that. So it's definitely more rigid, it's more structured, it's more time consuming to um, set it up. It's a hard one to describe. Like there'll be times where you don't want to be that rigid, and you'll probably use a more free flowing section. But I think there'll be times maybe with like landing page building, which I know you guys have been talking about quite a bit, where you want people to be very structured, let's say, because it's trying to keep to a sort of a lead magnet style where you just want them filling in certain things. So we want to give you the control to do any kind of structure effectively, how define how you structure the page and how limiting it is for the customer. So yeah, definitely ways to expand it, to customize it on the right hand side, but also complete control over the layout. So in the layout, you would be able to decide exactly what this layout has and allows them to edit. I hope that I appreciate the concern is still there. It's with this route, it is going to be more structured, most definitely, but that comes with positives as well. So we just need to be able to have all three types of ways of doing things. I think this is a key one that's missing at the moment. If you think about it, we've got completely static content and we've got completely dynamic content. If I just quickly show you a different type of section, I think this will make more sense. So our team layout, when we're building layouts, we think, well, hang on a minute, is this a static layout or a dynamic layout? And in this case, it's both, because there's no reason why you couldn't have that just as a static item where somebody fills in the 4 items. There's always 4. or in the code you delete two, whatever it might be. But it's overkill to have that as a web app if there's only going to be a couple of items and you just want the client to be able to edit it in the page. Especially right now, because you've got to go off to a completely different place to manage it. And in Studio, the code for that doesn't look very good. It just shows a liquid include. So solution one is to make dynamic content load. So we would render, if that was a web app item, we would render that and they would see it. And then we would have the right tools in the right-hand side box to either take them off to the item to edit it, or potentially and hopefully let them edit the item in the right-hand side. But the middle ground, and I think this is a really powerful one for these kind of situations especially, is to have structured content using JSON. So um, this is a static layout, but it's got some predefined JSON structure. It's got the title, as we had in the last one, a description, but then it can have items, a bit like if you've used Webflow, it's not a good example because theirs is database driven, I believe. But this would not be from a database. So you would structure this in the layout itself. It's just using JSON structure, and you'd be able to say that you can effectively loop over these fields to create as many of these boxes as you need. So you've got a card structure, and you would just we would just output as many of those as the UI has created. So if they press the plus button, they can create a third, well, fifth item in this case, and be able to then customize the content on the right hand side. So you've got the best of both worlds, really. You've got the structure of dynamic content, but being able to manage it all as static content in the page. How does that sound?
Yeah, it definitely makes sense to have that extra route. I guess my concern is, yeah, what the routes to unlock or lock away things from clients as to, because I think one of the challenges, I'll be honest, most stuff comes back to us, to be honest,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
handle, which is fine. It'd be nice if more didn't come back to us, obviously. Um, I think the difficulty is, we look at this, fairly frequently. Our clients look at it in most cases every blue moon.
Hmm.
Anything we can do to make it really straightforward when they do look at it is going to be a good thing. And
Yes.
in this case, that's got to be a good that's got to be a good thing to have this kind of option. And having in this example, I think it's really nice that when something is pretty straightforward and doesn't need a web app, then being able to handle it without a web app is really a positive thing, isn't it? So I guess we would look at this and think, well, with our level of customization, how would we take these kinds of templates and make them work? But then, that's down to us to create them in Studio for the user anyway. But yeah, I guess for us, it's the making sure we know how to put everything, and probably just need to build something using this format, and or kind of integrating these capabilities, and see how we get on and see what issues we come across at that point.
You're raising the same concerns and dilemmas that we're having, which is good. We're really worried about making it too structured and therefore taking away the flexibility that is basically the selling point of the platform. So we definitely don't want to do that. But as exactly as you've said, sometimes you want to give the customer the
Mm.
most simple thing possible, lock it down as much as you possibly can, and have them go in and just. You really need one quick training video or document on how the right hand side works. And that's all they would really need to learn. That they would go into the page, and whatever section they see, they would click on it and then edit the content exactly like a web app. So it's kind of taking the web app concept that they're probably most likely used to, because web apps are the easiest to edit for a customer, and putting it within the page. So, but what we must not do is make that hard for you guys to build or customize, whatever. So using this as an example of what you would have to do differently in your workflow, firstly, we'll obviously have this library of layouts to start from. So you could take this Flowbyte or Bootstrap, let's say, version layout, and then you could customize it to that client's site or to your agency and share those layouts for all of your clients. Totally up to you. But if you didn't, if you took one of your existing layouts or just built a page from scratch, if you didn't put any JSON in, then nothing would appear on the right hand side. And at that point, you might be better off building it as one of the more free form layouts, exactly how we have now with Studio. So you won't be pushed into this, it will be optional, but it's that middle ground that I don't think you have at the moment.
Mm.
So with this, like most of my clients, so we build web apps for them, because they've got similar things like teams of people or something that they're selling, not like training courses or whatever it might be. So not necessarily e-commerce products, but so I can see it being useful being able to see both, basically the web app sort of construct on the right, the layout on the left, but there's some other little weird things. I don't know whether you talked about in the last video because I haven't had a chance to catch up.
Sure.
But there's a lot of like basic things which would be good to do just from a list view, which is like disable, enable, web app items or whatever. Not having to go into the web app item, disable, come back out. That's painstaking. So I don't know whether you've got something you've thought about that
Right.
one. Yeah.
I'm just going to write these down. This is a collaborative file that I'm just going to write notes on. So,
so those basic, disable, enable.
I'm sure that's been on the roadmap for years.
It is. It is. We will definitely
right below e-commerce attributes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So no, that's definitely on the roadmap. Yes, sure. Yeah, that'll definitely help with dynamic content management. Totally agree with that. Yeah. Sure. This is why it's so tricky. We're trying to consider everything all at once, but also really focus on what's missing at the moment. So yes, so that would be helpful, but it's dynamic content is there. It's a route. What isn't there at the moment is sort of this more sort of structured aged development, not non-dynamic content.
So also with images, is there any way, I've got some clients that are fine with it, but some have, don't even know how to resize an image. Is there some way we can improve that as well? So if they've got a high res image, it can be rendered appropriately without them having to do anything?
So, well, that's another big thing to talk about that we're also factoring in with, so we've talked about it a couple of times in town halls, but there'll soon be a new sort of private stack, it's called, offering that we're doing with Platform OS, where sites can run off Oracle and Cloudflare. And once there's that available, there's a lot of really powerful tools within Cloudflare to handle that kind of thing. So a bit like fill proportional from BC, there'll be those kind of tools where you can transform an image and only render it at the size that you want it to render. Do you remember the code was something like width equals 400 or something like that? You could do that on the image URL. So something like that is possible. And there's some other things where Cloudflare can automatically optimize images as well.
Oh, that sounds good. Yep, excellent.
Look, are you moving away from Cloudinary then? Because I just stumbled across that there last week.
Cloudinary is still very, very useful, but to be honest, it's a solution at the moment because AWS or the current AWS setup doesn't really solve image optimization well enough. So Cloudflare will offer us some extra tools. So in theory, we will remove you don't need to use Cloudinary at the moment, but when you feel like you do, you shouldn't feel like you need to do that with Cloudflare, with having that option. But you might, for some reason, on a big site or something like that, consider tools like Cloudinary. I think maybe, Liz, you were also talking about the actual editing experience. So somebody being able to resize an image in Studio. Did you mean that?
Well, well, I guess if it's, you know, it's a space which is 400 by 600 pixels, it'll just automatically pretty much,
Right.
if that was possible, just resize it to whatever the space is that's available.
Yeah.
Because again, a lot of my clients, I mean, I train them up, but then everything comes back to us anyway because they struggle with things like image resizing and you know, they get themselves confused
easier
and
to
they're
pick up the
uploading to the
phone, isn't
wrong
it?
place in the back end, and we've seen it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, anything. So really, really helpful feedback, and I want to get all of this and talk to you guys as much as possible about these kind of things. But anything in particular about the sort of studio? Let me show you one more thing actually, and then this might link it together. So I've just shown you structured, very structured content that instead of a web app for something like Team, we've got very simple content, very static content here, which is JSON managed. We've then got dynamic content as well. So being able to also potentially manage the output of dynamic content. So in this example, being able to control the blog liquid include effectively visually. This is, I imagine, something you would completely turn off for most customers. And it's something that you guys would, if you, again, if you have somebody on your team who's not a developer, but wants to be able to build out a new page or a new site or something, and get into this kind of setup, they can do it more visually than code-based. Do you think that would be useful?
I think if they did that and it actually rendered in Studio as opposed to it just being a liquid tag,
Yeah.
that would be most powerful. Because
Yeah.
you can pull, then clients can just pull in what they want from web apps and everything else, and
Exactly.
pages they want, and forms and whatever.
Exactly. So yeah, this is most definitely, one of the biggest parts of the upgrades to Studio. We actually had it planned probably when we first showed off our Studio plans. We already had a vision for rendering dynamic content, but the problem with that concept is it's still the more Webflow route where you can fully well, currently you can fully control all of the output, which means we can't render it, because if we render the liquid include, we're then going to save the rendered content into the page, which then becomes useless because it's not dynamic anymore. So what we want to switch to doing is most of the central area is the rendered page, not editable. You don't click into here and start editing. You do your editing separately on the right hand side. So that allows us to render the content. And when you click save, you're actually saving everything down into a page. You're not saving the code that you've been playing around with in the middle, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that's been our biggest challenge is, well, hang on a minute, why are we're making a real headache for ourselves, but we're also opening up this door for people to break everything. And I think by taking the visual designing away, apart from when you insert a section that you want somebody to specifically be able to have total control over, it allows us to bring dynamic content back in and really make it. This is what should be the most powerful part, really. You've got some maybe very bespoke web apps that you've been able to set up for the customer. You should be able to easily work with that that functionality in the page. So yes, there would be a button somewhere, and this is probably where we need to, comes back to this right-hand side discussion. I think we could probably, I don't think it's that useful having all of the structure here. I think what might be more useful is a better UI for what you can insert and how you insert it. So really thinking through like what types of content you want to put in, I guess a bit like we have with Toolbox at the moment. So we'll do a lot more thinking about this, but again, we'll try and get your ideas and your involvement to get the UX side of it right. The only bit that this doesn't do is, I'll just show you the other one quickly just for variance. Obviously, if you had a one with images, then yeah, switching between these two, what this doesn't handle is the layout. So we also then want to consider whether you'd want to be able to edit the list view and the detail view within Studio as well. Again, more agency developer experience than a customer experience. But in an ideal world, would let you click edit layout somewhere and be able to actually control which fields appear where and that kind of stuff. So a bit like the this one, you would potentially have a way to map the that piece of the layout with the dynamic field. So if it said here on the left title, in this box you would be putting name, like curly brackets name from the web app or module. Does that make sense? So a little button to be able to, I can kind of show you it. We did it a long time ago. Let me show you this quickly. Sorry, 1 second. So something like essentially being able to like see a list of all the field names like you have at the moment in code editor, but also the ability to pick which which field you're going to use. You press this little icon and you'd be hooking up that piece of the layout with a specific field from the database, if that makes sense. Obviously, some of you guys don't really want to do all of that visually, but I think it's useful if some of your team or other teams don't necessarily have so much experience of Siteglide or so much development experience, I guess. Yeah, I think those are the main concepts to talk about. Obviously, UI UX is going to be very important, but in general, the concept of giving you total control over the admin, so left-hand side management and user roles, we're going to try and let you be able to control everything, turn everything on and off. If you had that, I don't think there's any downside to us adding more functionality into Studio, is there? So like if there's this extra type, if you choose not to use it and you turn everything off in user roles, I guess it doesn't have any effect for you, but then for a certain customer or a certain type of page, like a landing page, you might turn it on again. Is that how you think you'd use it?
I'm not sure it's worth all the effort for you to put all that together, because it's I may be picking it up wrong or whatever, but it seems to me there's a lot of work to go in to get this, which is going to be a fairly static end position for the client. When I've built sites on other platforms, I would create this functionality and use front end submitted web apps. So I basically make a bespoke admin system for the client. So if they wanted to update their team, they would log in on the front end, go to the team, and they would see basically this, which we've just built for them. So they would be updating the web app information like that. I don't know if that's what you're trying to do with this, make it easier for the end client. But I've always gone to build that specifically for the end client, because they'll all want it done kind of different ways, and there'll be different things. Whereas if you build this, it's great if that's the right end result, but there's so many variations. I wonder whether you'll be able to capture everything and whether it's worth the effort to put that together or another. That's just my initial thought.
It's such a good point. It's as if you were in one of our meetings last week. But yes, I'm on the fence as to whether this should be available as a front end tool, because there are some use cases you might be building a portal for either a big company who has lots of internal team members, or it's a portal where they have their customers log in, and you might want them to be able to put together a landing page. I know you've got a couple of examples like that, Steve, where you would want that. They're not going to be in the back end, and I've been thinking this through as well, but we also have to make sure that the product is coherent, and we can't say, oh well, if you want a good editing experience, you've got to build it yourself. That's one thing that we can't do. So I totally take your point, and I think there are many use cases where front end is likely. What I'm leaning towards is it being API based, so effectively it could be front end or back end, but there's obviously added work and complexities with that. But just to give you so what I'm about to show you is very much a draft and a rough idea just to show how it could work. It's actually using a Shopify layout just as an example to see it, but this is a front end of what you're talking about, Steve, effectively, where you can if we go to, you would essentially be able to go into a page like we've just been talking about, really, and then in that page add different sections, which is what we've just been looking at with the design. Choose different types of content you might be able to might want to put in there. If I do another image with text, you'll see this page only has that for the moment. And then when you click add, it updates and renders. So this is just rendering the page in the center. And then you'd be able to control what that looks like. So that's going to switch it around and put the image on the other side. You can make the image small. You can add animations. We can add whatever we want here, and you would be able to customize this as well. So this is all front end. And in theory, yes, I totally agree that you might want to be able to take this and fully customize it for that use case. So it's one of the reasons why we want to get your input so early, I think, is how I think the concept of having content separated from code, so the JSON route, is going to come in some way. It's a very useful thing that we don't have right now. But how we do it is the most important bit. As you say, if we put all our efforts into Studio or into the back end, that's probably better for the building experience of most sites, I would have thought, for us to keep improving that. But yes, it doesn't solve those use cases where you want something more bespoke. I guess both is the answer. Yeah, any other thoughts or comments on all of this?
I do like the idea of the client being able to see the page evolving as they change the data.
Yeah.
I mean, they can have two screens, obviously, and keep refreshing, but that's certainly a positive. I have to think more about whether I was trying to think. It's probably only 20% of my client base anyway that would want to do more of their own layouts, in all honesty. But that's probably be interesting to canvass that from from everybody. How useful is it for the bulk of the? I mean, by the same token, though, it does open up a new market for you as well, for people who perhaps want to be able to have more control.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've spoken internally that we're probably going to put a survey together and send out to you guys and try and do more research before we go too far. And I think you've just hit on, you've all said it a little bit, but my customer only really does X. And I guess we need a better understanding of what is it that the customers actually do. Do they only do X, a bit like you said, Nick, because that's all they can do currently? The tool isn't good enough to, or you don't want to throw them into Studio maybe, or is it that you only want them to do that, or they only realistically are going to do that? And I know there's not an answer for a standard answer for every customer, but do you think there's any feedback anybody can give in terms of the most important things that you want customers to be able to do or not do?
Yeah. Regardless of the reality of what they do or actually don't do when they come on board and they've got an agency looking after them, which is a very different thing to where they may have been previously. But we convert a lot of people from WordPress, and more they're on things like Elementor and other horror shows in terms of load speed and so on and so forth. But they love the fact that should they ever want to or need to, not necessarily saying they would do, but they love to drag and drop and create their own pages. Now, they'll invariably be horror shows. They always are, but that, you know, they like the idea of being able to do it themselves on a Sunday evening when we're not there, or, you know, not have to wait a week for us to have a designer and then developer free to do that thing that they needed urgently on Sunday night. So there's definitely a place for it. There's absolutely a place for it when I'm selling sites. Undoubtedly, you know, if I
Yes.
demo this, you know, I'd be pretty confident that for, you know, a bit like Liz says, you know, probably more 95 rather than 80% of my clients, even if they had it there as a functionality, they wouldn't use it because it's so much easier to give us a call. But the fact that they could do that is a good thing. The fact that I could potentially put something together of an evening and, you know, it's structurally there and present it to my designers to then design up. That's quite a nice thing to be able to do. Can you skin this, guys? So, you know, there's definitely use cases even from us internally or my marketeers to be able to create a page, to put the copy straight into the page and the layout. That would be, you know, we're getting into the realms of almost using it in a little bit like Figma at that point, in terms of we're kind of creating that, using it to create that structured layout. But the fact that it's coded and then needs skinning or potentially doesn't need skinning is definitely positive.
Yeah, really helpful. It's tricky, and that's why we don't want to go and build something that you guys are like, oh, it's nice, but is it going to get used? But at the same time, we want to improve, obviously, and we wouldn't want you guys to love the building experience and then your customers be going, yeah, but it's not what we want. We've got to try and, if we can help keep your customers happy, you're happier and you're not worrying about that. So we really want to look at that a little bit more, because I think it does get a little bit neglected. But at the same time, we don't want to go too far with it or do anything that works against you guys.
Yeah,
I think the size of client too makes a difference. Just thinking about client base, the ones that have more staff definitely do more because they've got the resource. So yeah, it's sort of like we've got to have foot in each camp. You know, the ones that don't do anything, or not that they don't do anything, they don't have the capacity to do anything because they don't have the time. They're busy in their business. So they're the ones that ring and want one image changed, as opposed to ones who've got staff who can jump on.
Well, and capable staff is the next thing.
Sorry, whether they're capable.
Well, yeah, we have quite a few people with staff, but they you know, they can't do what we can do for them, not even close.
Yeah. And I guess that's the other question. Like, if you're mainly building one-page or landing page sites, the requirement is probably more on giving them the ability. Where if you're building very complex sites that have bespoke functionality, I imagine you end up doing more of the management and maintaining of those. So I guess it depends on the project a little bit.
Yeah, entirely.
Okay. Yeah, we don't have to talk about only this topic, but it's really helpful for us. Anything else that you think's useful, or feel free to deviate onto anything else?
Yeah, I don't know whether everyone else would agree with this, but you know, all these enhancements are lovely, but we, you know, if we could say one thing to you, kind of stop until we've got all those little core things on the website, on the platform done, because I must admit, I look at this and think, gosh, lots of thought, lots of resource, and you know, we're still missing basic functionality from 4 years ago that we need to get right. And you know, things like, well, can we, you know, you're right in there, bulk edit features, and you know, it needs to, those things just need to be done. There are still things that, you know, it'd be nice to open up on the data side of things, like you know, we had, I don't think we even flagged it with you yet, but you know, it'd be useful. We've got a situation where we need to have a no index, no follow on some blog posts, but not all. So we need a custom field in there to be able to put that in. Now, we might be able to do that already, but you know, there's just there's a number of little things that we've just got to get on top of still, and you know, all the lovely shiny future stuff is lovely and it needs to happen. And but yeah, we keep coming back to those core elements. I don't know if Liz and Steve agree on that one. It was just nice to get those knocked off the list rather than the bright shiny future objects.
Yeah, I think that's where I was coming from as well, John. There's a lot of effort to go into this, whereas there are other things that if the rest of the platform was 100%, then great. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing a couple of clients really need is form copy, because it generally means I need to get involved, which would rather not do, because it's, you know, they've got particularly payment forms. You know, they've got payment forms for different things that come up during the year, but forms in general, so that they can just at least kickstart it, that they can make a copy, adjust the labels, adjust the fields for the new one, but yeah, just have a real kickstart with an existing form.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you know, putting custom elements into the, you know, if they can build it, we can then add a custom field in, so we can do all the e-commerce, the tracking.
Yeah, it would help us. Yeah, it's right, it'd help us too.
That 2021 dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
well, I think that's a good point. So this year, I think I've mentioned it a couple of times since probably the July town hall. It's been great to sort of hear there haven't been too many like really urgent burning things, and we've had like a more probably a smaller list of key things that we've been working through. Admittedly, some not as quickly as we'd like, because we've had to do some bigger infrastructure ones, but we're like the forms for integrations, that ability to use integrations with forms is just around the corner. That's one we've been focusing on. Obviously, discount codes on individual products, those kind of things that we've been talking about for a few months now, very much in focus. But I think I'm really hearing what you're saying. Let's and last time, Nick, you suggested whether there could be like a top 3 that you can list, and I've been thinking about how we do that. So I think we need to come back to roadmap then. We need to find a better way to probably clear out, well, just get some focus, because there's a lot in here. And I think we need to really make sure we're on the right things and very aware of what matters to you guys. So we'll have a think about how we can better structure that, or better involve you to get the right feedback. But yeah, I mean, if there's anything you want to mention now, feel free. I don't want to put you on the spot though. We need to do this properly, and we need to make sure that it's very tricky, obviously, sometimes when something's urgent in that moment versus something that's really a core feature that needs to be there and you should be able to do by now, like these two as an example. So maybe we need a few different buckets of like main ongoing new feature versus feature enhancement versus bug issue, or something like that. And we can have those kind of 3, and you pick your top one of those. Do you think that would be a useful way of doing it? Or?
Well, I mean, feature enhancement is it kind of shouldn't be relevant until the core elements are done on the this has never worked list, and it's a, you know, it's a standard feature that the competitors have. So yeah, you know, kind of I'd like my e-commerce attributes. That would be that's been on there for forever, and yeah, you know, there's just a number like that are just such standard elements on the competitors, and yeah, to then be spending a lot of, you know, to see a lot of energy going into the bright shiny future things and not seeing the fundamental core bits getting done, which on the face of things seem like a lot less work you know, I'm not the person doing the coding. It might be the devil's own job to create those things, but yeah, we just don't seem to be, you know, it just gets pushed down the road. It's always on the list, but never on the list kind of thing, or never anywhere near the top of the list. It's the worst ever call handling system. It you know, you're now in position 3. Now you're in position 7. Ah, great.
Yeah.
And there's always new things coming onto the top of the list. And
I mean, what we've been talking about, the studio side of things, is more like vision stuff. It's not impacting immediate roadmap or anything like that, and it wouldn't. But no, still, my biggest concern is: are we doing? Let's say we're just talking about roadmap. Are we doing the right things? And I want to make sure that we do. So, I think it would be good to get this finite list. Maybe we'll send something out, but what if you guys went through and listed, maybe do a list of
Can you send us just all put it on Discord or whatever, just on the roadmap channels? Like, right, these are all of the things that are on the road. People have requested on the roadmap. I know there's probably, I'm going to say there's quite a few on there, and some of them are probably not.
There's probably a load on there that have been done and nobody realizes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Or somebody's worded something in a different way. So
yeah.
Okay. I'm conscious of doing it the right way, but we can go through. I think what we'll probably say is, if internally you guys in each of your teams go through and just send us a list of ones that really matter to you, ideally in some sort of order and importance. But we'll
Should we
also
give you our top 10? Would that be?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. And then we'll also go through and make sure that we've gone through the full list as well, and can try and cross-check it. And if there isn't, if there's one what we think is important and nobody's mentioned it, we'll bring that back and go, hang on a minute, should this actually be removed? Is it not a problem anymore, or where does it sit? And then I guess altogether we can agree the priorities.
There's some core elements on there, as Nick said, that need doing, and there's nice to haves that people have put on there, aren't there?
Yeah.
You could, they're not essential. They're nice. Oh yeah, that'd be nice if we could do that. But it's not really going to improve anyone's experience by a couple of clicks, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And there's probably a load of stuff on there, as I say, that's already got, you know, it's either been done or there's a workaround that, but we just haven't considered doing it in that way, or the, you know, another way of, you know, the thing I just mentioned on blogs. I know I can do it on web apps. That's not an issue. But it's nice when it says blogs and it's in the right place on the sidebar for the client. Well, if I can amend that sidebar, that solves the problem, because I just create a web app and call it blogs. But you know, so there's often workarounds. But yeah, it's just looking at things and knowing.
Yeah, totally agree. Okay, let's do that. Yeah, I think sending us a list, it's so difficult for you guys as well, though, because I know that will change based on what's going on at that moment in time with customers. But if you can try and sort of, I guess, find the ones that you know, this is always there. I hate hearing, you know, it's been there for X amount of time and we just want to see it done. Let's get those ones. Let's make sure we're all aware of those ones, and we can give you some kind of order on when they'll be done.
Yeah, and the number of new things is definitely a lot less these days, you know, because I think we all know the platform a lot better. We're not selling things that it can't do, which we may have been doing, or you know, expecting BC functionality at the in the early days. So I think there's definitely a lot less, certainly in our case, of we need this. It's just more stuff that's outstanding from years ago, rather than the list changing. I don't think John would put anything different on in the last 6 months or the last.
I might have added about 2 things, I think, in the last 6 months.
Yeah, discount codes became more of a thing at one stage, but other than that, I don't think we've got anything that was particularly new. That was a major thing that'll end up on our top 10.
Yeah. Okay. I totally agree, and if we take copy form as an example, though, it's not in this list, and while it's been there for a long time, there's nothing that tells anybody that that's coming soon, us included, or needed. So that's what I want to solve. We need to make sure there's a better mechanism backwards and forwards to make sure that while something's on there, it's current and in the queue. I think quick enable disable is one that is there, and that's one that probably an example of that is hasn't been bumped up the list. I think your point, Nick, was you expect to sort of see it gradually go up, but then sometimes it it goes back down again. Yeah, we need to make sure that
it never
doesn't
gets
happen.
anywhere near the top.
Yeah. So this is obviously in queued, which if it was in queued, I'm going to be trying to be very fair on this. Like if it was in queued a year ago, you would expect it to be higher up than that by now, and it's something that would have been done or in the works. So we need to try and go through that list and make sure there's a clear order. Everybody can see that order. I think that's probably one of the biggest issues at the moment
or
is
grouping
beyond
things.
these. Yeah.
Literally, things like that where it's enable, disable. Well, that might come as part of a bigger piece of work that is allowing us to choose which columns show on the editor. And as part of that, then if we know that's part of that piece of work, that might be useful to help our understanding. I know it's more work for you guys in terms of managing things and keeping us updated, but yeah.
No, I like that. I think that's good. So yeah, you're going to send us your top 10. That should mean that we get X amount, let's say 100. We can then have a next town hall about okay, so this is something we've been talking about. We almost need to reset the votes or have a way of getting, maybe not leave that as they are, but have a way of getting the votes on the new top 50 that we end up with or whatever. And then you guys can go, well, we've actually all the people who are using it day to day are the ones who have said, actually, this one is important now, not in 2021, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
There's one feature I can see on there that I think we requested, which was payment gateway integration into Klarna, but we can do that via Stripe Elements, so that can actually be advances completely.
Yeah.
You can do it that way and just add it in.
Where was that? Sorry,
it's in the in progress thing. It says payment gateway. There we go. Payment gateway integration with Klarna. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is only still there because we were going to do docs on it. So yeah, it's an example of it's available. Yeah. So again, we'd like to get that updated and off the list.
Well, that's handy because it's funny because Klarna has suddenly become a bit of a thing in Australia now, which is why I voted for it. I thought,
you can use,
yeah.
You can use Stripe Elements to do it, and same with anything. They've got quite a few additions on there. You can just tick a box and sign up for it, and it automatically puts it in the box and as a
good.
So it's quite.
We can't find it right now, but yes, you get all the different types of add-ons. So yeah, definitely worth looking at that. Yeah, these ones here. Oh, doesn't let me click.
Yeah, and then it does. Obviously, it changes depending. Obviously, Google Pay, Apple Pay, depending what browser you're on, and what else? Oh, the only issue we had with Apple Pay was you have to put a particular bit of code in a particular folder that you have to create via CLI. It was a bit complex, but Matt, one of the Matts helped us with it.
Is that something you think we can make easier?
Absolutely, yeah. There's a subfolder that needs to be, and I can't remember what the subfolder's called, but it needs to be at the root, and it needs to be this subfolder. The only way to do it was via CLI.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. It's not that we can't do it. Yeah, now we know what to do. It's yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Okay.
If there was a box, say, under in the site.
That's one of those, we can work out how to do it, it's not therefore important.
Yeah.
So that's nice to have.
Yeah, nice to have. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so you guys send us top 10. If you need to add more, add more. We'll pull them all together. We'll try and review so that in the next town hall or whenever everybody feels like they've been able to do it, we go through and we all try and get clear on the top 10 or the priority lists or whatever, how we order them. And then we will make sure that roadmap shows that, and they will all be in planned, and obviously unless they're in progress or complete. Is that probably the best way to handle it?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
And then actually they can have a category of, we can make sure that they're you can definitely see which ones we're working on. Okay. Look, I totally take that on board, and just to be clear, like that hasn't changed. We're not going, oh well, we're not interested in those things anymore, we're not going to do them, we want to do something shiny. It's that we're also trying to look ahead to, if we just focus on what's on the list, I'm worried we won't necessarily make the right decisions about how we do them. So trying to give you a good example, if we added a certain enable disable as a workaround to another problem that really we should solve, I just want to make sure that we're like seeing everything a bit more holistically and go, well, let's not just do band-aid fixes. Let's try and make sure that we're all clear on which direction we're going in.
Yeah, great.
And I think to help us with that, we'll probably do this kind of survey. We'll probably do a general sort of survey of how it affects you guys, what you'd like to see, what you don't want us to see us doing or hear us doing, what's most important, so we can better understand your perspective, really, I think. Good.
It would be worth reviewing these on a regular basis, because we've kind of got completely out of sync. So maybe part of the town hall, or maybe every other town hall or whatever, we look at what's the top 10 still, what's new, should they come in, just so we get an idea, rather than, because we're going to have to go through everything now and reorder. Whereas in that sense, so the platform, we're getting the fixes that we want done. I don't know if that's what you've done before.
Well, yeah, I think you hit on the point, really, that the roadmap at the moment, this site with all of 258 items in it under the core platform, is probably doing a bit more harm than good at the moment, in terms of, as you say, if we have to keep going through this because it's a mess every few months so that everybody knows what's going on, that's not good enough. So either it's that we're sifting through and just picking out 20, or in an ideal world, we would actually go through and have less, I get, or make sure that we don't have to go through 250 every time. There's a good chunk that are out of the way, either not important or in some kind of other section. So we'll have a think about how we can make sure that the list is finite, and we can just keep reviewing that one list. So I guess a good example is if people add, because obviously you guys can add to the roadmap whenever you like, that should probably go into a place, and then that should be separate from the actual roadmap of things that we're all discussing and working on. So maybe this should be ideas, and then another box should be roadmap of the items that we're actually all have made it into the group discussion and we're agreeing priorities on.
Yeah. It's interesting because actually when you look at the number in planned and the number in progress, there's actually not a lot. You say core platform 258, but almost 200 and something of those are complete. So it can probably just come off.
That's very interesting. I had not
so
checked.
Actually, when you look at in progress, I think you've got 6 items in there. And planned, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
but I think the rest are.
So our list might be quite small.
Well, I think there are two other types. There's nothing, so that doesn't have a label on it, but there's it under review as well. So there will be, what we need to do is we need to make sure that the ones that come in and the ones that are under review get dealt with, and an answer given, and then either they stay in this sort of bucket where nothing happens, or they get transferred into the active pot that we're all discussing and getting feedback on.
Mm.
Because there'll be some in here that I imagine all of you will agree it just isn't needed, or as you said, ridiculously nice to have, and they shouldn't be getting in the way of the really important ones, I think is the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't find a good example yet, but there will be some.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay. It's been bugging me, to be honest, and we haven't come up with necessarily the right solution yet for how to manage the noise of roadmap well enough. So
Are you
I think
able
that's
to
what we'll
send
do.
us out then the list of roadmap items? Because I'm not sure where we're all pulling from, because if we go to in progress, or hopefully they're in progress, and we go and plan, there's not much in there. So
this is the full list, but maybe it's not easy enough to work through. So complete is 450.
yeah.
Well, that's assuming.
There's not that many then if we.
Leave it with me. I'll work out whether there's a better way that we can get it over to you guys to review, and then we'll give a time period to do your sort of top tens, and then we'll all meet up and go through it, I guess.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Good. Yeah, I want to change that. It's not yeah, we want to make sure that you feel like we're on the right things and you know how they're going along and when to expect them. We'll try and have a better way of handling that.
Cool.
I'll stop sharing, but any other questions or anything else to discuss? Bit of time. Okay. Yeah, so time is flying by. Yeah, I hope you all have a really great break, get some time off very soon. Are you guys working till sort of the end of this week or quickly?
No, next Tuesday.
Yeah, Christmas
Next
Eve,
Tuesday.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Christmas Eve, yeah.
Cool. But then we're not working
Yeah,
till the second, so we've got quite a decent break at least. So
that's good.
nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
We all need it this year.
Yes, exactly. As always, we will be monitoring and we'll be getting back to people as quickly as we possibly can. But yes, trying to give the guys a bit of a break as well. But yeah, as always, we'll be there if needed. Good. Well, yeah. Have a very happy Christmas and enjoy some time off, and happy New Year.
Yeah. Have a good one, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Thanks.
See you later.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.